I don't know about Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard at all, because even like, for example, Tulsi Gabbard, before the fall of Assad in 2017-18, I think she went to Syria
Mm,
and she had said that there's no chemical weapons which had
mm.
been used. And Elon Musk is he's like a celebrity.
He's like Swift Taylor on the other side.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's like
It's
the
like
entire,
talking to Taylor Swift for
yeah,
negotiations with Iran.
yeah,
Although Elon Musk is a little bit more knowledgeable than
yes.
maybe than Taylor Swift, but when it comes to Iran, I don't see any differences between them. And Tulsi Gabbard is a trouble. Maybe she can be a troublemaker. In the mainstream Republic.
So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Dr. Shubda Chaudhary, and it is too hot in Delhi. It is not so cold in Iran right now, which is very, very interesting. So, I'm pretty sure, I don't know how the weather is where you are, but nevertheless, keep liking and subscribing to our podcast. Today, we are going to talk about the impact of Trump's cabinet pick on sanctions against Iran. Or for that, we have our very esteemed guest, Issa Adeli. I hope, sir, I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Sepas. And he is a researcher and policy advisor in Tehran, in Iran. And so, sir, my first question to you is that before we go into understanding what Trump's cabinet picks means and whatever, what what do the sanctions really mean? Like, can you explain to us that what when was Iran put under sanctions and how it affected the daily lives of Iranians?
Actually, sanctions are two types. It's first sanctions. I don't know what can we call it, but there is also secondary sanctions. And uh, since decades ago, our bilateral trade with the U.S. decreased a lot. So Iran didn't have much trade with the U.S. And so the first kind of sanctions, that is direct sanctions against Iran by the U.S., that has started 4 decades ago. Iran could manage its trade relations in a way that scared those sanctions. But secondary sanctions by the U.S. Is something that really hits Iranian economy, and it's like you cannot find some parts for things that you could find in the past. You have bought a car, and the car has uh, parts that are no exist in the market. It is not possible to buy them and to provide them. Um I guess it is just like what happened in Russia. I've heard that many parts of Soho 35 now is produced by Russians instead of by Western companies, and they don't have the same qualification that they had in the past. But during these years, Iran managed to scare those sanctions, but it has its own effects, and sometimes it really hurts. Sometimes people can find other ways to produce the stuff that they need. But things going on, and countries try to find a way, and world is full of opportunities to scare those sanctions. Although it hurts the development of the country, and it has huge negative side effects. Has a problem in Europe also. There are many problems, but for the U.S. has no embassy in Iran, and travel ban hit the country. Although there were some restrictions before the executive order for banning traveling to U.S. There were restrictions for those 7 countries, but when Trump in his first administration, he totally banned traveling to the U.S. by Iranian, by Iraqis, Somalia, Sudan.
And over the period of time, so it's the same thing. So even the Europeans or the Americans cannot go to Iran.
Yes, they can. They can come Iran, and it's safe for them. Sometimes something happens. I cannot comment on that, but in general, there are Iranian with dual nationality. They are basically Germans, French, Spaniard, whatever. They can come Iran, and no problem. There is no problem for that. Although there are some, something sometimes happen that I can not make a comment on that.
And over the period of time, how do you, like, as an Iranian, how do you compare how the Biden administration versus the Obama administration for Iran?
If I don't know, you or your viewers are aware of those thesis and antithesis and syntheses. If we take Biden as a thesis for diplomacy, and Trump as an antithesis for coercive diplomacy or maximum pressure, we can say Biden was in the middle, like a synthesis. And so Biden didn't have a coherent strategy towards Iran, while Obama and Trump both had a coherent strategy. By coherent, I don't want to say that it was good or bad. You can have a good strategy which is incoherent. You can have a good strategy, incoherent, bad strategy which is coherent. So I'm not evaluating those strategies, but Biden tried to both have a pressure on Iran and then at the same time resort to diplomacy and negotiations. And with some misfortune that happened during his administration, like war in Ukraine and other things in the Middle East, he was not lucky, actually. And at the same time, he didn't have a coherent strategy. So Biden's strategy in Middle East, my assessment is totally failed. And but I should say that his strategy in the Europe, in war in Ukraine, bear some fruit and was fruitful. But in Middle East, it wasn't coherent in general.
Do you think that the American administration understands Middle East?
Uh, the current administration,
Any
or
administration in the past, how they the entire idea that, it's a Western narrative that Middle East is always in chaos. So the reason of chaos can also be the lack of understanding on their part, right?
Middle East is chaotic, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of misunderstanding when I read articles written by uh, analysts from the US, by officials. Sometimes when I see their tweets and their posts on social media, I come to a conclusion that they don't know Middle East enough.
Yeah, that's my understanding also, because that is how they picturize, and they specifically after 9/11, that is the kind of picturization which has gone, and the entire idea of sectarianism, of Shia Sunni divide, of saying that, these are always fighting with each other in common terms. All of that lacks nuanced understanding.
One of the reasons maybe is that nation state structure is not settled in the Middle East perfectly, like it settled in Europe centuries ago. And the identity politics in Middle East is not perfectly understood in the West. So that divide you said between Shia and Sunni, between Kurds and Arabs, between Turks and Kurds, they are not understood in the Western academia and policymaking uh, cliques. So yeah, I agree with you.
That is that is something, it's the same thing, because they did not understand the Indian caste also, like the British colonialists. They did not understand that how caste is different from race. There were so many debates. And then caste is only the upper structure. There are subcaste and jatis and so many other things. And they were not able to understand it. And sadly, we still have this narrative in which we look towards the West for validation. That
Mm.
is something difficult.
But I think to be fair, we should say that we in the Eastern Hemisphere, we don't know the West as well. You
Yeah.
know, the problem exists in our side. And as I told you before, I focus on the U.S. foreign policy, and I study the U.S. officials' ideas, opinion about the Middle East, about their own politics, about their differences. But we in the Eastern countries, we don't have any clue how they think, and sometimes we expect things that is the nonsense on the other side.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are chanting slogans against each other while we don't know each other perfectly. And there are lots of misunderstanding. And sessions like this, I hope, could help both sides.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If the Americans think that they should watch, or the Westerns think that they should watch, and I'm sure they do watch. Um, so, in this entire battle, or I apologize for not using the correct term, or this kind of debate, or whatever, how do you think countries like China and India can help Iran? China has been helping a lot.
Um, Actually, I didn't focus on Indian politics or Chinese politics. As I said, I focus on the U.S. foreign policy on the Middle East. But China has helped a lot during these years of heavy sanctions. China is helping Russia too for skirting sanctions. And but during Trump administration, I'm not optimistic that the same help contribution that we received from China is going to be continued. Trump is going to start his maximum pressure campaign, and let's see how China can help us. Islamic Republic of Iran has been has become a member of Shanghai Economic Cooperation and BRICS. So maybe in this in the years to come, they will help Iran to bypass the sanctions. But I'm not too optimistic about it.
Yeah, and I will come back to why you're not optimistic, but Trump has been saying against BRICS recently. And India also was put under a lot of pressure to not have foreign policy deals with oil import and other import exports with Iran. And apart from that, Trump has some 100% tariff campaign against China. No one knows what it means. And like he'll charge 100% tariffs against Chinese products, especially they're, I think, apprehensive of the electric vehicles. And they don't want the market to be taken by China. And they're also, I think, going to ban TikTok.
So yeah, I heard those news. As I said, I'm not expert on China.
Yeah.
But I heard those news about tariffs against China. Trump is, in general, is transactionalist, and he follows the U.S. National interest, and his famous think tank, his first, I think, America First policy institution.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's part of America First policy, and I think other countries should deal with that.
And coming back to the question that why are you at a policy level as a policy analyst, why are you not very optimistic with the incoming Trump administration?
First of all, because of his team. Maybe he himself is more moderate than his own team. And I think he will start his maximum pressure campaign from day one that he takes office. And in this time, unlike his previous administration, he has Europe by himself. And Europe is preparing itself to trigger snapback mechanism and returning all the UN sanctions. And it really helps Donald Trump in his campaign of maximum pressure. Last time, Europe tried to they tried to define a mechanism instex to bypass sanctions imposed unilaterally by the US. This time, Europe is besides the US. That's one point. Although there is other differences. Last time, when JCPOA was signed 2015, and Trump pulled the US out of JCPOA 2018. There was 3 years that Iran didn't have those sanctions. And when Trump, and as far as I follow the news inside Iran, people didn't think, even the Iranian foreign ministry, predicted that the US couldn't couldn't withdraw from JCPOA. And when it came back, it was like a shock. And when you are not ready for something, even a slight blow can surprise you. This time, it's different. We are under the US sanctions, although sanctions has been eased by Biden administration, but we, I guess there shouldn't be any shock. It has very negative effects, but there shouldn't be any shock because, Iranian now are more ready than they were 2018.
And apart from, do you think that there might be some, like, I often joke around that if Iran agrees to Trump that, okay, we'll give you land in Tehran or Isfahan to make Trump Tower and real estate, he will get cozy with Iran.
I think that's part of misunderstanding on both sides.
Okay.
We don't know the US administration, and Trump can do that. It's not like Trump can do everything he wants. There is, although this administration is the most loyal administration to the president, I should admit it. But in the end, there is deep state, the national security bureaucracy, and it's not as easy as it's described by those analysts.
Yeah.
And also on the Iranian side, Trump is like a nemesis. He killed the Iranian general, the second most important Iranian general. And it's not like, okay, you can come here and rent a land and open a hotel in Tehran. It's, that's part of those misunderstanding that we talked about it earlier.
And there is also one misunderstanding, sir. There was news before that the Iranian ambassador to the UN had a meeting with Elon Musk. And later it was said that he did not.
Iranian officials denied those allegations, and I should follow that. I cannot comment on that. But let's see who are those people in Trump's second administration. I guess we can divide them in three categories. The first category is the main establishment of the Republicans, like Peter Exes, the Defense Secretary of Defense, Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor, and Marco Rubio, he is Secretary of State. These people are the interventionists. They are hugely against Iran, and they strictly follow maximum pressure on Tehran. There is also a second group that Iran can deal with them if it wants to have a real negotiation with the US. People like Elise Stefanik, the US ambassador to the UN, or Steve Waltz, or Massad Boulous. Massad Boulous is the Arab advisor. Yes, Arab advisor. But I think when you cannot go directly to the administration from the formal routes, from the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, then you have to find bypasses. And these people can be like bypasses. Recently, I heard that Donald Trump is going to pick Richard Grenell as an Iranian advisor. And I assess that as a positive point because Richard Grenell is so loyal to Donald Trump, and he's a real Trumpist when it comes to Europe. Almost all of these people, except from Massad Boulous, Richard Grenell, Steve Witkoff, and Elise Stefanik, they don't have any footprint on the Middle East, or in general, they don't have. So they are quite new, and they are very close to Donald Trump. Iran can find and talk to these people if they want to have a real negotiation with the US. There are third group like Elon Musk, like Tulsi Gabbard. I think they are outsiders in this issue.
Yeah.
And I don't take them serious. In Iran, Elon Musk is famous, and his popularity especially among the younger generation, is very good. So it can be a good sign. But when it comes to real negotiations, when you set the table and when you want to have a real negotiations, these public faces cannot solve the problem. So among these these three groups, I think the second group is the one that maybe if there is a will, which I'm not optimistic, if there is a will, that's the way to make it happen.
Yeah, that I don't know about Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard at all, because even like, for example, Tulsi Gabbard, before the fall of Assad in 2017-18, I think she went to Syria, and she had said that there's no chemical weapons which had been used. And there's a lot of rumor mongering. It can be mudslinging, it can be wrong. But a lot of Americans themselves think that Tulsi Gabbard is in the pockets of Russia. So that is there. And Elon Musk is he's like a celebrity. I'm not shocked that Iranian youngsters, really look up to him, because everyone looks up to him. He's like, why? But, it's that kind of soft power that he has.
He's like Swift Taylor on the other side.
Yes, yeah. Yes, it's like
talking to Taylor Swift for negotiations with Iran. Although Elon Musk is a little bit more knowledgeable than Taylor Swift, but when it comes to Iran, I don't see any differences between them. And Tulsi Gabbard is a trouble. Maybe she can be a troublemaker. In the mainstream Republicans, as you described it, she's a very outsider. Yeah. And but these are the people that we can say they are isolationists. Yeah. Like Rand Paul. So these isolationists, try to justify stave off any foreign conflict like Iran. Tulsi Gabbard once said that a nuclear Iran can be contained. That's a very huge thing, and we can talk to her very smoothly and very friendly. It is possible. Like maybe these people tell others that as we could contain nuclear Soviet Union, then it is much easier to contain Iranian nuclear bomb. So these people, I should say that Iran denied any nuclear bomb or building weapon, at least so far. But this is the rhetoric on the other side, and Tulsi Gabbard can be, as you said, she's a Russian pocket. She can be Iranian pocket too. So, but she's outsider. I think investing on her may be waste.
Yeah, it's completely. It's the same goes for Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio also fought against Trump in the elections 2016. So I don't know how they used to always call names to each other. Little finger, big finger.
Elisa Stefanik, even she she criticized Trump's executive order for banning travel to those seven Muslim countries, and she supported LGBTQ. So she changed a lot. And
Yes.
Tulsi Gabbard, she was a Democrat and
Yeah.
changed 180 degrees. So there are lots of these people in this new Trump administration, and I think that's a sign of loyalty. You know, Trump sees this as a sign of loyalty. When you change your opinion 180 degrees towards Trump, and I think it was Elisa Stefanik who once said, Trump said something, I'm not sure about the detail, but said something bad about Hollywood stars. And Elisa Stefanik said that I disagree, but still I support Trump during the election campaign. Or Tulsi Gabbard, as you said, she said many good things about Bashar al-Assad, but after his fall, I'm sure you have watched her interview when was asked about Bashar al-Assad. She said, I follow what I support and I follow what Donald Trump said. So 100% loyalty is the most conspicuous feature of this administration. And it means that we should listen and see Donald Trump more than Mark Rubio or Michael Waltz and others.
Yeah, that is I don't know. And Trump yesterday he was asked that do you trust Netanyahu? And Trump says, I don't trust anyone. And it went viral. And apart from that, this is also one thing which I find about Trump administration is that apart from it being very transactional, I think that Trump is in the long run going to isolate America more. Like it is isolate America forever kind of campaign that he's doing instead of make America great again. Because the tweeting is back. Initially, when Twitter banned him, then he started Truth Social. Now everyone takes screenshots of whatever he has tweeted at Truth Social and puts it on Twitter. I'm like, okay. And he is speaking against most of the countries. It's not just about Iran. And something which I never understood was the two timing of the American administration that, oh, we are so scared or we are so apprehensive that Iran is making a nuclear bomb, even after the inspections of the International Atomic Energy Agency. But at the same time, Israel has nuclear opacity, whatever that means. And this is some kind of paradox which continues with the Trump administration also, because he has, Massad Bulus to a long term, yes, he's a Lebanese American billionaire, but I
And
don't.
close to Hezbollah. Close
Sorry?
his party, I think his grandfather or his uncle, I'm not sure, Free Patriotic Movement in Lebanon. It was Hezbollah's allies at
Oh,
some time. So, yeah, it's
wow.
great.
like,
Yeah.
like the Amal movement and others from before.
Mm.
Ah,
Uh, you know, you have to consider one thing in your calculation about Trump's foreign policy, at least. We're talking about foreign policy aside from his domestic politics, which can be totally different.
yes.
I have no idea about the US domestic politics, but as far as I studied Trump's first administration, there are some points that if you take them into your consideration, you can predict him better. First, ambiguity is his asset. So when they say that you want to go to war with Iran, he says maybe. And when he's asked, do you can you trust Netanyahu? He says, everybody like you expects that, Netanyahu is my old friend, I can rely on him, he's a reliable person and whatever. But he said something that, is like a blue to your mind. And he creates ambiguity. And that is his game. Okay, so I think he relies on Netanyahu, and he doesn't want to go to war with Iran, no matter what he says. He's trying to create ambiguity, and you should avoid it. Otherwise, you cannot predict him. That's one thing. The other thing is Trump. There is a duality between isolationism and interventionism, and people are struggling to put Donald Trump in one side of the spectrum, but they cannot. I don't know if you know, or your viewers know, Walter Russell Mead. He divided or categorized the U.S. foreign policy into 4 categories of Hamiltonism, Wilsonism, Jacksonism, Jeffersonism. And he explained that Wilsonism and Hamiltonism is the U.S. foreign policy mainstream. And the other side, Jeffersonism and Jacksonism, are the alternative school of foreign policy in the US. When you say that Donald Trump we can say that Hamiltonism and Wilsonism are interventionist, and Jacksonism and Jeffersonism are isolationist. Donald Trump is isolationist, but he's not Jeffersonist, he's Jacksonist. He's not like Tulsi Gabbard or Elon Musk or Rand Paul. He's not like them. He's Jacksonist. He believes in a strong military capability that can deter others and get the US rid of foreign intervention. The US will follow its interest all over the world, and Jacksonism means America first. So America first should be interpreted as Jacksonism, not Jeffersonism. So, in some sense, I can say that Trump is isolationist and trying to isolate the US from other places in the world. But on the other side, we see that Trump is going to engage in every issue all over the world, China, Ukraine, Middle East. So how isolationist is he? It is not possible to put Trump in a category of isolationist. He's Jacksonist. He builds a strong military and try to deter others instead of engaging on the ground. So he will invest on the US offshore capabilities. He will pull the US troops from Syria, but he will build or have a bigger aircraft carriers and F-35 or whatever, unmanned aerial vehicles, whatever. He tries to build American offshore capabilities instead of forward presence. That's Jackson's grand strategy.
So you really think that he'll pull out of Syria? There are 900 American troops right now in Syria.
Yes, 900 troops has nothing except like a tripwire. And I think sooner or later, the government in the Damascus, whatever it is, should deal with the Kurds and find a solution for the Kurdish question in Syria. Turkey doesn't want an autonomous territory for Kurds like it is in Iraq, and the US supports Kurds. As soon as they come to a conclusion and find a solution for that problem, which I think is achievable, and the US and Turkey can find a way, I think the US doesn't have problem if Kurds won't have a autonomous territory. Let's see what happens. But as soon as the problem solved, the U.S., the Trump administration will pull those 900 troops out of Syria.
What this conversation reminds me of? It reminds me of an Indian mythological tale that once there was a very beautiful princess who was very intellectual, and she was like, very, she was a matriarch, she was very powerful. And different princes came to ask for her hand. And she said, "No, I am just going to marry the most intelligent man. These men are not very intelligent." So those who were hurt by her sentiments, they found the most foolish man who was sitting on the tree branch and cutting the same branch. And they found him and they told him that all you have to do is be quiet. And we will sell you off to, as the best groom to the princess. So they took him and they told the princess that this monk is very, like, he has traveled the world. He's very experienced, but he is on a silence vow. You can ask him any question, but he will reply with 0, 1, or other fingers. So the princess was very intelligent. She asked him intelligent questions. The foolish man didn't know. He was like, sometimes he'll say 0, sometimes he'll say 1. But because the princess was very intelligent, she was making every answer that was given by him into something very coherent and intelligent and deep. Because look, he doesn't speak, and look, he is so well mannered and visionary and everything. And she married him. And that is after, when the silence vow was broken and the reality came out, she realized that he's not educated, he's not traveled, he has no knowledge, and it was all a trap. So sometimes I feel that, I'm not trying to patronize Trump, but sometimes we think that we apply so much of our own knowledge and understanding him that we are just defeating our own purpose, because he's not following that.
Maybe we should see what happens. Kellyanne Conway recently said that, I don't know if you have heard her statement, that Donald Trump is a very complex man with simple ideas, but others are simple men with complex ideas. Let's see what happens on foreign policy. Then we can, maybe history will judge him better. But I, as an analyst, have to find a way to predict him.
Yes.
And we have his first administration, and we have the differences that his new administration has. So let's see how it unfolds.
And also because, one thing which I think is very strategic in the second cabinet is that the first time he was still, no matter what he was doing, and so many women protests against him and so much of allegations and impeachment, he somehow believed that he has to maintain the core base of evangelicals, of the lobbies, to get support for the second term. So he has to, like appease them, he has to flatter their egos and everything. The second term makes him unpredictable because now he doesn't have to run for the third time. So he doesn't really care. And he will be very, very, as you said, transactional, but also very impromptu. That, no matter what his team is saying, he'll be like, and I predict that he's going to have a major breakup with Elon Musk.
Yes, it's said a lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
it happened.
yeah,
His personality is very important to him. And he said that he wants to make a deal with Iran from the very first day, 24 hours, the first week, things like this. And if it doesn't happen, then he will resort to his maximum pressure campaign. There are also there is also one other factor that it's said that he left his foreign policy to the Republicans mainstream and take domestic politics in return. So people like Mark Rubio or Michael Waltz or Peter Hexes, they are like a concession that he gave for his foreign policy.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
He has to also because the price of food, the real estate price, the price of mortgage, the price of just having a food on your table for an average
Mm,
American has grown very expensive.
mm,
And the inflation is very high. And most of the Americans in the lower middle class and even the middle class, they have to do two jobs to
mm,
make the ends meet on a monthly level.
mm,
And along with that, the insurance, the health insurance, which is very costly.
mm,
And no one understands the foreign policy and the economic policy through tariffs that Trump is saying. But it will make things even more expensive for Americans.
mm.
That is one thing which is there.
As I said, I'm not an expert on domestic politics, but even to me, as a normal person, those tariff policy is insane. And I don't understand when it's like Mexico, the wall in between border between the US and Mexico.
Yeah.
It was insane. Sometimes he uses these ideas as a bargaining chip. It's possible. We don't know. But in general, for some of his ideas about tariffs, seems totally insane. I cannot digest those policies. How he thinks about tariffs, and when he says that Canada can be another state of the U.S., it's like a joke. Maybe I don't know. We should see how it unfolds.
He tweeted that Justin Trudeau was a governor of Canada recently. And we were like, when did Canada join US? So
Yes.
we don't know. And Justin Trudeau would be like, what? So this is something. And my last question, sir, is like, what do you want to tell to our students as an Iranian policy analyst that you don't get the chance to speak on different platforms?
I didn't get your question perfectly.
like, what do you want to tell the students or whoever is watching
Mm.
about Iran, about the Trump cabinet pick in against Iran or whatever it is? What do you want to tell that you think that there's something which, sometimes uh, because of the media, it is not allowed to be spoken? So, what do
Mm.
you think is something that scholars who are studying Iran and US foreign policy should really focus on?
One thing is, understanding Iranian foreign policy and the US foreign policy is very important to know. It is very important to know the identity politics and the ideational factors. Even in the US, when it comes to Middle East is a hotspot of ideologies. Great religions uh, were birthed in the Middle East. So ideational factors in the Middle East is very important, and it creates the same effect on the other side. So when you study Peter X's statements about the Middle East, about Israel, when they support Israel, it's like a religion to them. And by realistic approaches, you cannot understand the US support to Israel. And you have, incoherent expectations. One of the reasons that Donald Trump, although it's not a big reason, I know the big reason is, the main factor is the US domestic politics. But even when it comes to, the Biden administration's policy towards Israel and the incoherent diplomacy that he had, even Muslim countries, Muslim minorities in the US were not happy and some of them voted for Donald Trump. So to understand the US foreign policy, it is important to know, to study, to research the ideational factors that makes Republicans more coherent because of those evangelicals, because of Jewish lobbies, whatever. It gives a better idea to predict the U.S. foreign policy. We have to predict. If I come here and tell you that Donald Trump has known nothing and it's totally unpredictable, then why should we talk? What is that we can talk about it?
Yeah.
That's the reason that we have to make something out of his moves, at least in
Yes.
the Middle East. That's we can do, and I have found, those categories that I told you about the difference between Jeffersonism, isolationism, and Jacksonist isolationism. I found it as a better predicting tool to understand this crazy administration, if you can call it. Whatever you call it, this is the best way to predict it. So,
Yes.
assuming rationality, that's the other point. Assuming rationality to both sides is very important. Instead of thinking that they are wasteful people, they don't know what are they doing, both in Iran and in the U.S. Because I have heard that people in the ministry media, they say that Israel doesn't know what they are doing. Netanyahu is hurting Israel, and Iran's official is hurting its own country, and Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. In this way, you cannot come to a conclusion, and you cannot predict them. At least as an analyst, as an academia, you have to. There is no other way unless you assume rationality to the players. There is some reasons, but you cannot rule out any stupidity. You cannot rule out that.
Yeah.
But as an analyst, it's your obligation. It's your task.
Yes, that is, because what I completely agree with you. We have grown so like policy making and academia are very two different fields in India. And both of them are becoming echo chambers when both of them have to be together. And when academics spend like 20, 30, 40, 50 years knowing a region, they can actually be better, at policy making and prediction. Um, and at the same time, those with empirical experience like ambassadors, journalists, and many others. And it is very important to predict because that is how you not only about understanding the situation, but also how you can save or have minimum damage in the time of uh, tragedies. When you have to look at your own diaspora, you have to look at your own investments, you have to look about your own trade. So but instead of last minute panic, one should be able to predict, even though we don't have a crystal ball and tarot
Mm,
reading and astrology, but we can predict to a certain extent to understand and have dialogues.
mm.
I completely
Yes.
agree with this.
Yes. You asked me about Donald Trump's presidency, and I tried to make something out of his moves. If you have asked me about Biden administration or Iranian administration, I'm not expert on these issues, but if I had, I tried to find a way to explain them.
Yes.
Israel administration, I said the Biden administration was incoherent because of he was unlucky, not because he was stupid, because of he was unlucky. The war in Ukraine happened, and he had to stabilize the energy market. So he had to go to Iran, to Venezuela, to ease sanctions and bring their oil to the market to stabilize energy market, while the EU is putting the heaviest ever sanctions on Russia. So there was some rationality on Biden's move, and he was unlucky. We don't know Trump is a lucky man or not. So far,
Trump
he was
is
lucky.
very
So
lucky.
far, we can call him serendipitous. So far, he was lucky, but we don't know what happens. And maybe 4 years later, we talk, and I will tell you that he was incoherent.
We are going to talk, I think so, in the first, month of January and be boggled down with everything that happens within the first 10 days. That is
Mm.
going to happen. We don't have to wait 4 years with Trump. No. So with this, Sepas, sir, and thank you so much for the privilege of your time. And thank you for being there and speaking with our students. And I will edit this, and by after 20th of December, I'll put it on YouTube.
Thank you. I forgot to thank you for your invitation at first,
No,
so
no,
I
no.
have to thank you now.
No, no, no. Thank you so much, sir. And it is a real privilege. I feel very happy when I don't know why, but I feel very happy when I talk with Iranians because somehow I feel that the borders between us are a facade, be it the
Mm,
border between, any of the South Asian till the Middle Eastern countries. I think all of them is a facade. And
mm.
we have to understand each other more in
Yes,
terms
of
of
course.
language, history, identity, brotherhood, sisterhood, people to people talks, and
Mm.
crack bad jokes and laugh at them. But we have to do that.
India has a very good image in Iran. I don't know if people told you before, but Indian Indians have a very good image
Is
in
it
Iran.
because Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan?
Yes, that was one part of the story. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the US or China, different part of society have different views towards them. Some people in Iran hate China, some of them hate the US. But when it comes to India, generally they think they have a very good perception of the country.
I will let Modi uncle know about it, that he should
Yeah.
not travel to Iran. So thank you so much, sir. And have good, take care of your health and stay well.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, sir.